What is flowers?
Children are costly. Clothes, food, toys, the list goes on. And if you're a working family, you may decide only to have as many as you can afford. That's certainly the case for DANYEL, a South African-born college lecturer living in Carshalton. She has one child, 15-month-old Isabella, and would love to have 3 but can't afford them. She says it isn't fair that families on benefits receive more state cash the more children they have.
Definitely unfair. I think, my husband and I work really hard. We earn good money, and here we are sitting every month thinking, okay, do the figures add up for us to have another one? And then you see people that don't go to work with 3, 4 children, and you just think, how fair is that when they're not having to think about the same things that we have to think about when it comes to deciding how many children you want to have and if you can afford to have those children.
Who's this one?
Parents who are on income support receive around £82 extra a week in benefits for their first child and around £65 a week for each subsequent child, according to the Child Poverty Action Group.
But Ian Duncan-Smith wants to cap those benefits at child number 2, which it's estimated would save around £200 million.
Not for eating.
That's only a fraction of the £10 billion that the Chancellor says needs to be wiped off the welfare budget.
Yeah, it's like George, look.
But some say it would still be good news for taxpayers.
Every penny of this spending is a penny taken out of their pockets, making it a bit harder for them to afford all of this. And I think redressing the balance so that both tax-paying and benefit-claim families both have to make the same tough decisions over how many children they can afford is only fair and realistic.
But what about the potential impact on families that rely on benefits? Like Peter, a single dad in Brixton with 2 kids.
Financially, it's completely wrong because it's not the children's fault. Children need to be supported in some way, and I've got both of these. He's autistic. I can't go out to work because he goes to school for a few hours. It's half term next week, so there's not many jobs where you can have, every 2 months or so have a week off. It just doesn't exist. So, in the long run, it ends up costing more money.
Any cap wouldn't come into effect until after the next general election, and it isn't yet clear which benefits would be included.
It would also most likely only apply to new claimants. But some charities say families in work could end up losing out too.
6 out of 10 poor children live with a working parent. So these are the strivers. They're working really hard in low-paid jobs. They've already had cuts to tax credits, child benefit and housing benefit and so on. And they claim benefits. So this policy of 2 children would affect people in work just as much as it affects people out of work.
While the idea of a benefit cap does play well with potential voters now, it's how it works in practice that could make or break it.
Do you have a juice? Is it nice?
Conservative MP Philip Davies and Kate Bell from the Child Poverty Action Group are here to go head-to-head. Kate Bell, even working families are having to delay having kids because of the economic circumstances. So is it fair to pay out more benefits to more than 2 children?
Well, we know that all families make tough choices about when they're going to have another child, and as Alison just said now, working families receive extra benefits when they have a child as well. I think we really need to look at, it's not quite clear what the aim of this policy is. As your reports just said, it's not going to save very much money, and we don't think that anyone's having children based on whether they'll get more benefits or not.
Well, it isn't to save money, is it? Because it only saves a couple of $100 million. It doesn't affect those getting benefits already. It's politics.
Well, it will save some money by definition, but it is mainly about fairness. And Kate says that everybody has to make these decisions about whether they can afford to have children. Lots of people do have to make that decision, but some people aren't making that decision. They're free to have as many children as they like, get more and more in benefits, get the state to pay for a bigger and bigger house for them. And it can't be right that people who are going out to work making responsible decisions about, can I afford to have another child? Can we afford a bigger house that we'll need? No, we can't, we won't bother. That those people making those responsible decisions are having to put their hand deeper and deeper into their pockets in taxation to pay for those people who don't have to make those decisions.
I mean, I think we really need to tackle some of the myths here. There's a tiny proportion of families on out-of-work benefits who've got more than 2 children. 91% of those on out-of-work benefits have got 2 children or less. I think the other thing is, when you have your kids, you don't know what's going to happen to you. We've just heard we've just come out of a double-dip recession. Many people lost their jobs. They didn't expect to be bringing up their children on benefits. Should we really be penalising them for that?
Well, but the point about this is that people have got to take responsibility for their own decisions and for their own lives. They can't expect other people to forever pick up the tab on the back of their decisions. And we all know that the world is not safe for people in their jobs. We all know that our jobs are vulnerable at any moment. They're decisions that we have to take ourselves. We have to take responsibility for our own decisions. We can't just expect the taxpayer to pay more and more in benefits to pick up the tab, whatever people's circumstances. And people are going to have to start making more responsible decisions. The welfare budget has grown massively over the last 10 or 15 years. We've got to make decisions that make it fairer and stop that huge rise.
I suppose what those on his side of the argument are saying is that the welfare system is providing a perverse incentive for people already on benefits to have more children.
Actually, there's absolutely no evidence that that's going on. And in fact, the Department for Work and Pensions actually looked into this a few years ago. They produced a report and they found that there's minimal or no effect of welfare on fertility. So this kind of idea of a perverse incentive, we just haven't got any evidence for that.
When Ian Duncan Smith talks of, quote, a clustering of large families down at the various lowest incomes, he hasn't got the evidence for that, has he?
We haven't seen the numbers, obviously. I mean, as I said, this kind of idea of big families on benefits, we've got...
Where's the evidence?
Well, we do see this happening. I mean, we read reports in the papers of families with 8, 9, 10 kids who are all on benefits, expecting to be housed in bigger and bigger houses. My constituents come to me in my surgery and talk about these people living next door to them, living down the same street that they object to. And it's building up a huge resentment amongst many working class voters who actually are going out, doing the right thing, making sensible, responsible decisions, and yet they see other people down the same street who don't seem to have to make any of these tough decisions, any of the same decisions, who just sit back and expect the taxpayer constantly to pick up the tab. And that is just simply unfair.
I think it's really, really important that kind of in emotive areas like this, we really make the policy based on the evidence, not on kind of rumours or, a one-off story in the paper. As I said, the vast majority of families on benefits have got 2 or less children. We also know the kind of idea that we've got families sitting on benefits. Most people stay on job seekers allowance for less than a year. 90% are out of work for less than a year. So this idea that we've got kind of people long-term on benefits having more and more children, it's just a myth.
What would happen to a mother of 3, never claimed benefit, suddenly becomes widowed and needs to claim to support her family? What would happen to her?
Well, I think in terms of the details, there are some details that need to be ironed out. No, it certainly is. There are people, for example, who already have a child who would have twins, for example. Those things can be dealt with by exception. The point is, exceptions can be dealt with within the benefit system, but what we should have is a sort of a set policy, which is the norm, which is the normal situation to deal with. We can deal with exceptions when they come along in individual cases, but we should. I think Ian Duncan Smith is absolutely right. He's identified a problem that lots of my constituents see, that think is unfair, that's undermining the welfare state, and he's bringing forward a sensible policy that would actually restore people's confidence in the welfare state.
The polls that we have on this and the focus groups suggest that most people, they may be right, they may be wrong, but most people think what he says is fair.
I think, again, we've got all these myths out here,
People are just mistaken.
Well, I think it's really important, as I said, to look at the evidence. And I think, the idea that people are kind of on benefits and having extra children to claim more benefits just is a myth. At the moment, there's a lot of insecurity. Everybody's worried about their family income. They're worried about where the money's going. But I think to kind of have these policies which target people and which ultimately the effective is going to be to target children, that's just not the right way to go.
I mean, most of the welfare budget's spent on the elderly. So here you are targeting child-related benefits, but you continue to pay winter fuel payments to millionaire pensioners.
Well, that's a different issue. The issue we're talking about...
It's an issue of fairness.
Well, the issue of fairness is that it's trying to reward people who do the right thing and penalise people who do the wrong thing. The welfare system at the moment gives every incentive for people to do the wrong thing and penalises all those people who are doing the right thing. And what Ian Duncan-Smith has been trying to do so far, with a great deal of success, and what he's proposing with this policy, is to try and rebalance the welfare system so it rewards people who do the right thing and make responsible decisions and doesn't reward those people who take irresponsible decisions.
What this policy is going to do is penalise children whose parents are unlucky enough to lose their job.
Kate, you have the final word.
Thank you.